Currently, our population is growing faster than it ever has in the last 50 years. And more importantly, our businesses continue to lead the country in optimism about the year ahead, according to the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. So we have the infrastructure, we have the research and development clusters, highly trained workforce, and a competitive business environment, all supportive of innovation, growth, and expansion. Now, to be sure, you're going to hear a similar pitch from other jurisdictions today, over the course of the next week, and likely you've heard it before. But the difference is that all our statistics are from independent third parties. It's kind of like saying, if you don't believe us, listen to what our critics have to say. And that's when you see major media, international media outlets like CNN.com, referring to our province as an economic superstar. That just doesn't happen overnight, and not for good reason. So it's about attracting investment, creating a highly competitive business environment, and pressing that Saskatchewan advantage wherever we can. How competitive is our business environment? Well, let me just go through a few very quickly. First of all, the Fraser Institute, another independent international research organization, ranks Alberta and Saskatchewan in its 2009 report on Canadian investment climates as 1-2. That's fairly significant. In fact, Saskatchewan is expected to exceed $15 billion Canadian in total investment for the first time ever in 2010. That's more than double the investment in 2004, some short 6 years ago. And if you take a look at and analyze where that money comes from, significantly, 8% of our foreign investment comes from foreign sources. 8% of our total investment comes from foreign sources. That's a significant amount. So we are on the international radar, and it's growing each and every year. Second, a 2009 study by the CFIB, that same institute, ranked Saskatoon, Saskatchewan as the most entrepreneurial city in Canada. And four additional cities in Saskatchewan in that top 10 are from Saskatchewan. So 5 out of 10 of the top entrepreneurial cities in Canada are Saskatchewan-based. That's fairly significant. And they ranked things, and they looked at things like tax and regulatory policy, concentration of entrepreneurs and business startups, optimism of small business owners. And thirdly, consulting firms KPMG, in their 2010 Competitive Alternative Studies, confirms that Saskatchewan cities are cost-effective and a great place to do business. So considering these and many, many other factors, we're very optimistic about the future of our economy. So we want to speak very quickly, as I make this a long introduction for Ed, about a little bit about specifically the oil and gas industry and where we are with incentives there. And so what can we offer to the oil and gas industry when these qualities are combined with our existing assets? And all of this is done with our partners at Energy and Resources. And we've made a number of royalty and tax changes over the past years to enhance our fiscal regime. And I'm just going to list these very quickly. For example, the Saskatchewan Petroleum Research Incentive Program was extended to this year. A lower royalty regime specific to EOR, enhanced oil recovery projects, is in place, which will apply to any future production from oil sands and oil shales. The General Saskatchewan Corporation Capital Tax, the CCT, the General CCT, was abolished, just done away with. And the rate of the CCT surcharge on resource sales was reduced to 3% for oil and gas. The CCT surcharge rate on oil and gas produced from wells drilled after October 1st, 2002 was reduced to 1.7%. And just very recently, our colleagues in Energy and Resources announced a further incentive for natural gas horizontal drilling just a couple of weeks ago, Ed. Congratulations once again. And then finally, our Saskatchewan corporation tax, our overall tax rate was reduced to 12%. So you can see that this is about not only maintaining a good fiscal environment and business environment, but we're continuing to push that competitive envelope. Our focus remains on maintaining a fair and competitive royalty regime relative to other jurisdictions. To that end, we have made a commitment to not increase our royalty rates. This from our Premier Brad Wall, who at a recent investment conference in Saskatoon, when talking about another international country, we'll call it Australia, imposed a tax on super profits. And he said, I thought all profits were super. So you can see that this permeates our administration and cabinet right to the very top. So to sum up, we have a highly competitive royalty and tax regime that is stable and predictable, coupled with the resources that the industry is seeking. The key point is this: investment goes where the resources are, and it goes to the jurisdictions that offer positive investment climate. Saskatchewan has both, and that's what the new Saskatchewan is all about. And I'll hand things over to Ed for an overview of the Saskatchewan oil and gas industry itself. Ed? Thank you.
Well, thanks, Chris. I echo Chris's sentiments. It's a pleasure to be here to talk about the exciting opportunities in Saskatchewan. Chris has set the stage for you quite well with an exciting and passionate presentation on our welcoming business climate, our enabling fiscal climate. What I want to talk to you now is the resource itself, oil and gas and the petroleum sector. So let's start with a snapshot of the industry in Saskatchewan. And Saskatchewan, of course, in Canada, which is the largest exporter of oil and gas to the United States. And according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, in October 2009, Canada reported 2.524 million barrels per day to the United States. That's more than twice as much as the next country, Mexico, exports to the United States. Saskatchewan context around that, our portion of that, and our resource. First of all, natural gas production started in Saskatchewan in 1930s, and oil production followed in the 1940s. Saskatchewan is the second largest producer of oil in Canada, after Alberta, of course, and we account for approximately 17% of the total oil production from Canada. We are the third largest producer of natural gas in Canada after Alberta and British Columbia. The petroleum sector is a major contributor to Saskatchewan's economy. In 2009, the value of our sales from oil and gas was approximately $9.6 billion Canadian. And that's down from in 2008. We all fondly remember 2008, where the value of production from that year was almost $15 billion. There are estimated 27,350 jobs, both indirect and direct, related to the oil and gas industry in 2009. And the industry is expected to provide approximately $1.3 billion in revenue in 2010-11, this upcoming fiscal year, to the province. And it is one of the largest contributors to the provincial economy, representing 14% of real GDP. So as you can see, Saskatchewan's annual crude oil production has increased over the last decade and has remained quite flat. And in fact, 2008 was a record-setting year at 161 million barrels for that year. We've only decreased marginally for 2009. What's not on this graph is, of course, the preceding 10 years in which we saw Saskatchewan's production actually double. And so in the era of the so-called peak oil, we are seeing Saskatchewan not even close to that. We are growing with every year. Also interesting to note in this graph is the distribution of the oil streams in Saskatchewan. We produce we produce light, medium, and heavy crude, and approximately 50% of our production is heavy. You can see in the last year, however, that we're seeing a larger portion of light crude stream as part of our production, and that can be attributed to the exciting Bakken oil play in southeastern Saskatchewan. And after the presentations, I'll be glad to give more details on the Bakken play in a Saskatchewan context. But suffice to say right now, 5 years ago, there was about 500 barrels a day coming out of the Bakken in Saskatchewan, and now it's over 60,000 barrels a day. Saskatchewan natural gas production Saskatchewan's not a large natural gas producer. We're the third largest in the country. However, you can see that our peak was in 2006, which is 340 billion cubic feet.